All right, enough of ranting. All
Hmm.
right, welcome to another episode. And we're fortunate to have
Hmm.
Doctor back home again. And what are we going to talk about today, Doctor?
Okay, so we're going to start by discussing one of the areas that I realize people don't seem to understand in Bitcoin. Um, it links in with the legal and economic aspects of everything, but people do not seem to grasp the nature of the block maturity level. So um, miners get paid, but they don't really get paid until their block is 100 blocks deep.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that no one seems to model, no one thinks about. If you look at all the silly concepts out there, like selfish mining,
Mm-hmm.
no one considers that um, there's a block maturity level. And if
Okay.
you're building some sort of secret hidden chain, um, then you've got to consider what occurs and all of this. But what if we run it for over the difficulty adjustment period? I mean, the argument on selfish mining that people come up with is if you run it across multiple difficulty adjustment periods, after I demonstrated that it wasn't effective and it was a stupid attack that didn't work, they came up with, oh, but if we do this over 6,000 blocks, then suddenly it becomes profitable. But here's the thing, it's not a static system, it's a dynamic system that people sort of change the amount of hash rate, they react. They're not machines, it's not automated, it's humans. And one of the aspects that need to be incorporated in your thinking about how Bitcoin works is the block maturity. Now, this is an important aspect for 2 points. Number one, if you're mining a block, then you need to have other miners build upon it.
Yeah.
Other miners need to
Mm-hmm.
build because if they don't, then uh, you won't get to 100 deep.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you
By the
don't get your
way,
money straight away. There's not.
yeah.
Hmm?
Is there any like a specific reason why it's 100 shoulder? It's like 10 minutes. It's almost like a. It's not too low. It's not too high,
Uh,
and it's not probably
100
not
is actually
optimal.
about, well, it's 15 to 16 hours,
It's,
which means no matter where you are in the world, it should overlap, even if people are asleep.
oh,
Um,
okay.
there should
Okay.
always be I wake up,
Time.
I come in the
Okay.
morning, oh, bugger, I need to do something. It should always be at that level for a commercial operation.
I see.
So um, it gives an overlap where people can start doing things and taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And contrary to what people think, Bitcoin's not an automated system where you sit and forget and never do anything. It should be run as a business. When I said that it ends in data centers, I meant that it becomes a business. Effectively, no one, as a home user, apart from crazy people like me who were doing business,
Okay.
has a data center set up for a home system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next aspect of this is miners don't get paid until block 100. But at block 100, they're going to spend their money. So I want you to
Mm-hmm.
think through what that means.
Okay. What do?
That
That's the earliest
means
time they can
the
spend, right?
amount that they've been paid, yeah, it solidifies. And that means other transactions are going to start building off that transaction too.
Mm-hmm.
So if, for instance, 1,000 blocks later, in no longer sort of mega beta alpha version of Bitcoin that is used in real commerce, people want to say, oh, we can roll back the block. No, you can't actually anymore.
No.
Rollbacks are not an option,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
contrary to what some people will argue. Um, the only rollback has to be within the 100 block maturity level if you do any at all. And even that, I would
Mm-hmm.
say there are better ways of doing things. So if you think about that for a moment, once you get to past block 100 depth, T plus 100, not only now do the nodes that won the sort of right to distribute the coin, they're distributing the coin, but equally, others will start spending it as well. So as a node, one of the things I'll quite often do is I will go to my exchange or my financial operation, and I will transfer that I've earned so I can pay bills. Even if I'm keeping some of the Bitcoin I've earned, then I'm going to sell some to pay bills.
Mm-hmm.
And once I do that, it goes to an exchange, they send it to other people, they pay out of it. Effectively, other transactions are being built.
Yes,
And this is not like double spending.
Mm-hmm.
If you then reverse that, you are significantly impacting things. And by significant, I mean very big.
You mean
So I
all
want you to
the
think.
cascading effect because all the transactions being chained. So it's almost.
So if you now attack the network by trying to have this 101 block deep thing, guess what that actually means? You are clearly, definitively attacking the network. You are not just double spending. You are actively stealing.
Yeah, I could not see like a just natural occurring. You are like ends up with a block race ends up more than 100 deep.
Yeah, you invalidate the transactions made by other individuals, not only the miners, but also exchanges and people who have been paid generally, or transferred anything from the original sort of chain of transactions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start to look at it that way, you start to understand that it becomes more complex, because next, it's not only the distributed amount, it is all the fees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Miners spend their fees as well. So there will be multiple transaction streams associated with all of the effort that the miners are doing, including now potentially where it's mixed into other blocks, where it now links into the expenditure of the fees they've earned, of the block rewards they've earned, of the exchanges sending out and getting change from that, any spent change, any other clients. All of those transactions become instantly invalid if someone reverses this.
Which makes it irreversible if it's 100 blocks deep. Is that what you're saying?
Effectively, that should be considered the ultimate limit at where you go, it's not going to be reversed. So all of this, oh, but what if there's a attacker with a longer chain? Well, you would reject them. I mean, someone doing that is clearly attacking the network. And there's a reason I mentioned attacking throughout the white paper. I mean, under the various computer crime acts, under the various fraud acts, under all these other little bits and pieces, that is clearly an attack. It is not only a malicious computer device, it is not only a peer device, which makes it even worse, but it also comes into theft, fraud, monetary deception, and a whole lot of other things. So all of this, we need to let the blockchain be 2,000 deep. Why? If there's going to be an attack, you take action before you worry about whether it's a week old or 2 weeks old. If you start to see what I'm explaining.
Yeah, so basically, the way I think about it is, if we're just binding blocks, I'm a miner. If I see like a new chain of blocks that's longer, but it kind of goes back more than 100 blocks, I would just, doesn't matter. I just, even my node software can accept it, but I would just reject it. It's not like,
Yes.
okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you accept that, then effectively you're reversing people's transactions. And any node that does that will have legal consequences.
I see.
Any
So,
other node that loses any exchange, any individual would have a complete, utter right to sue any miner for everything they have and more. You are
okay.
also part of a distributed part of the system attacking the network if you decide to start rejecting validly instigated blocks. Now, there's a difference here. Everything's public and auditable in Bitcoin. If somehow there was a 100 block sort of orphan race, and there was somehow in this ultra unimaginably small probability that is not zero. I mean, it's up there with walking through the wall under the quantum physics. I mean, theoretically, my waveform could coalesce with the wall and I could walk through the wall. We're talking about the same sort of improbabilities. In that sort of improbability, if it did occur, then you would notice both orphan chains. You would see both chains simultaneously. Now, I'm saying it's that improbable because what happens is one chain or the other gets longer. The only way that it would be 100 blocks long without an attack is if simultaneously each finds and releases a block within 80 nanoseconds, 100 times in a row.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, you can actually work out the probability density function for this, the cumulative density function as well. What you need to do is think about a Poisson race where it's about 9 minutes to 10 minutes sort of as the mean. And think about the differential between A and B and whether they fall within 80 nanoseconds of each other. Now, take that value and do it 100 times.
Yeah, probably we.
So we're looking at around 1 in 100 billion for that. Not quite. I mean, honestly speaking, we're looking at maybe 1 in 500,000 blocks for the initial 80 nanoseconds.
And now
do that
times
100 times. Yeah, I'd be thinking there's something fishy if that was going on personally. But I mean, you could argue that it's theoretically possible, but yeah, so are a lot of quantum effects that never happen.
Yeah, the same with like you just random generate some 256 bits, a random number as a private key. I mean, others they can possibly generate the same key, but
yeah, exactly.
It's like just.
Oh, there are also collisions in Bitcoin
hash,
addresses. Well, not just the hash. The hash is a possibility, but in the address itself, there are multiple possible variants. So in theory, you could actually have multiple sort of addresses, like public keys that different public keys that have the same private key or variant thereof.
Yeah, I think it's the same idea here. I mean, it's theoretically possible, but the probability is just negligible. So whenever we see like a real longer than 100 blocks, it's almost sure it's an attack. There's no way.
And you'll know about it beforehand unless it's an attack. So this is why I'm saying about sort of 16 hours or so. I mean, you're going to notice that this has been going on all night. If you're serious about running your organization, then you should notice this. There shouldn't ever be, I mean, if you think about like 8 hours downtime for people sleeping and overlapping times when people are working, then there should be no way on a 15 to 16 hour time frame that any business misses things unless they're deciding it's Christmas, I don't care. In which case, too bad for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're operating a data center and you're like ignoring the host data center for like 16 hours, that's, yeah, you are legit. You are, I don't mind you going bankrupt. So.
So think about what that means now for a moment. If we get past the stupid coders law stuff that was never part of Bitcoin, it's meant to be anonymous, pseudonymous, with no nodes ever known, all that junk that was never part of it. Remember, one of the things I announced was right back in 2008 was Bitcoin is designed to end up in data centers. Think about that one for a moment. How many anonymous data center operators do you have at scale?
I don't know. Maybe you can set up one in North Korea, but that's pretty much it. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, but you've still got to. I mean, you'd be known by the North Korean government. I mean, they would have to be involved in that case, and then you'd have a connection to the world from North Korea. So everyone would know you're North Korean.
Yeah.
So the simple answer is it's an attack from North Korea. Turn it off. I mean, that simple. No one cares which particular government agency in North Korea, which particular corporate front in North Korea. All they can see is it's coming from North Korea. Turn it off. So that's not going to work. The entire point here is as you end up in these data center facilities as it scales, then you no longer have nodes being anonymous.
That's impossible.
Nodes are not even pseudonymous. The general population may not know who they all are, but IP addresses are easy to trace. If you want to be successful in mining Bitcoin, then you need to be well connected, and other miners will know about you if you're a significant miner. If you're 0.5% hash rate, no one will care. But then you can't do anything to attack the network with 0.5% of hash rate. But if you've got 30%, then suddenly people notice and watch you. It's a Stackelberg game, leader-follower game. And if you're the leader, you are constrained by the actions of the followers. That's what people don't seem to understand in game theoretic terms. Stackelberg games are more complex than getting to decide what you want to do, because you're not going to have 70% of the network. You're not going to be able to sit there and do whatever you want. And even if you did, you would still be constrained and still be able to be found and still be sort of bound by all these things. Now, I've mentioned a few terms that people don't seem to understand. I've said that there is this thing called sequestration. If you commit a crime, then sequestration means that goods you own, money that you have, can be seized legally. So how much do people put into data centers running Bitcoin mining these days, or BTC mining, or Ethereum mining?
I think millions, or even hundreds of millions, if not billions, if you're like a significant player.
Exactly, hundreds of millions, if not billions. And if you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not easy to move. You can't just pick up tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of machines and just ship them over the border quickly. A perfect example of that is happening with the move from China. As these hash providers have to move the location of where they are, then it becomes easy to sort of follow what's happening, watch when they come back onto the network, to see what happens when they move. I mean, everyone treats it like they're super secret, but super secret with photos throughout all the papers and etc. People know about it. I mean, everyone likes to put on their, hey, secret squirrel hat. No one will know what we're doing, but the reality here is they do. So if you are an exchange and you've paid money out within the 100 block or after the 100 block maturity period, and then after 120 blocks, someone reduces that to nothing by sort of building a longer chain, that means they have significant hash power. They're not doing selfish mining bullshit because it doesn't work. What they're doing is running more than 50% of the network to build something.
Yes.
And guess what that means? That means everyone knows who they are.
Yeah, sequestration.
Think about that one. Yes. So the first thing you look at doing is getting a freezing order that can be granted pretty quickly under an attack. You have the miner cut off from the network. You have the assets frozen. You have court orders to bankrupt them and take their assets. And as soon as they get cut off the network, what do you think happens to their chain?
Just if the attacker's hash rate just suddenly drop, everybody else is the same we talked before.
They suddenly drop when they're cut off the network. So everyone else goes off and builds, and that means their chain gets longer.
Yeah.
Which means the attacker comes out with their 200 block chain, and miners ignore that. And in the ensuing 2 or 3 days, it all sorts itself out. And those miners get a free injection of external capital for their effort.
Yeah, pretty much. You got more rewards, more fees. Okay.
So the difficulty keeps coming down to this whole coder's law bullshit that people keep bringing up. They keep saying Bitcoin works without governance. No, it doesn't. Bitcoin's not automated. So I want you to think through what happens if you stop updating code.
Stops updating? You mean the no software does not change anymore?
So say I was running it on a combination of Linux and Windows Server, and I decided, screw it, I'm not going to update the node software. No one's going to. We're going to keep it exactly as it is. What will happen?
Nothing. You just keep going.
So what about the underlying operating system?
Oh, they can. I mean, if you don't automatically update them, you can just get stuck there.
Yeah. So people love to argue that they can sort of stop updating code and keep using it on commercial systems. What is the problem with that theory?
I think everything else is upgrading, so you may.
How often do security patches come out on Microsoft?
I don't know, every day. I haven't used Windows.
Practically.
It's almost like a daily.
Linux.
I don't know, maybe a month or something, but less frequent, definitely.
Yeah, but you still need to implement them. That's the whole point here. What happens if you don't implement security patches?
Oh, you can get hacked, get attacked.
Eventually you will. So if you're running this sort of operation, you're protecting yourself by What? I mean, it is rather insane, isn't it? I mean, when you start thinking about all of this.
Yeah, it's virtually impossible. If you have like $1 billion investment and then you just leave it running, that's almost you know. You probably have a team like
Exactly.
DevOps, infrastructure.
So you're going to need to keep updating things. More importantly, what happens with network hardware?
Also, it's growing, like upgrading, like a software, hardware.
So you're going to need to update your systems. You're going to, I mean, effectively the option of we can leave the protocol the same isn't an option. I mean, contrary to what people say, there's no, it happens by itself. And more importantly, there's none of this stuff where people argue a distributed group, a team of nebulous people around the internet update the code.
Like a Bitcoin Core?
Exactly. So Bitcoin Core has a limited number of people managing the code for a reason. Otherwise, lots of people would make lots of stupid changes. So that means you have someone controlling. You have a controlling mind. So Bitcoin Core in BTC land is the group of individuals who act in a fiduciary manner to control the software.
Yes.
There's nothing that I ever said that is any different to that, contrary to what people say. Others, such as James Donald, argued that I was wrong. They argued that big bad government will come in and do X, Y, Z. Of course, that was never anything I cared about. So, I mean, all this stuff. Just as a side note, people say if the apocalypse happens, Bitcoin will be surviving with the cockroaches.
Okay.
Do you see a little problem with that?
Where do you get the electricity? Just the guys with the big guns.
Where's the electricity?
Guys with big guns.
Where's the electricity?
Yeah. Just grab your machine.
I mean, first of all, in most apocalyptic movies, the power's out. Next, the internet's out. So start thinking about it. What happens if Bitcoin's fragmented into 100 separate networks?
There's no Bitcoin.
Is it Bitcoin anymore?
No, you are running your own, like, I don't know, SQL database, and you are not synced with anybody. It's like internet, right? If everybody's just was not connecting with anybody else, it's not the internet anymore. You can call it, but.
So here's something else to think about. If you, as a miner, a node, can't exchange your Bitcoin that you're earning for other value, that there's no alternative system out there, exchanges, whatever that you need, what is it worth?
It's zero. If not, I don't think you can spend it. You can, if you cannot spend it. Nobody's accepting it. It's nothing.
I know. I mean, this is what I'm trying to get people to understand. Bitcoin is a highly integrated system that is fragile to collapse. It is not this BS about sort of the internet surviving as society collapses and being there somehow, and I having my Bitcoin on paper wallets that somehow I can still use. Doesn't work that way. Bitcoin is reliant on a variety of other systems.
Yes.
So effectively, after all of this, we end up with this data center run system, which doesn't mean that they're fiduciaries or middlemen. They're an internet intermediary, but The same thing applies when you look at Facebook or Twitter. If they have no sort of requirements to investigate large transactions, they have no obligation, nor should they need to. But that also requires legally acting. So a miner who decides that they don't want to take action is in breach.
Oh, you mean even they find somebody's attacking, if they do not actively defend, they're in breach of the contract?
If they get a court order, defining that they need to do X, Y, or Z, what do you think is going to happen if they don't apply that court order?
Oh, you just probably people with big guns come in and shut down the machines. It's like any other crime, like a court order. You've got an enterprise.
So then you've got the UASF hat people running around going, we can basically do whatever we're told and act like drones and mindless automata. Think about these ones for a moment. These people, how do they vote on whether the system changes or not?
They cannot write blocks, so I don't think they can do anything.
So, no. The only consensus methodology in Bitcoin is the creation, dissemination, and acceptance by other miners building 100 blocks on top of yours, not 100. The block maturity is not a miner builds on your block. You need 100 blocks built. And that's an important fact that few people seem to keep overlooking. Everyone sits there talking about, oh, you can attack the network. The example is in selfish mining, if we get 6,000 blocks deep, then wank, 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 with nobody making any changes to the network, no one rejigging their machines, no one blocking transactions, no one, I mean, the entire selfish mining sort of thing is for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or sometimes a month, I'm going to sit there while someone's attacking the network, and I'm going to collectively, with every single other node on the network, do nothing continuously. Even though if it's going over 100 blocks, because the argument that people finally ended on the mathematical aspects of this was around with difficulty adjustment and other things around the 6,000th block, you start becoming slightly profitable.
Okay.
Think about that for a moment. For 6 weeks, nobody's doing anything while their clients are having problems, while your own transactions are periodically being reversed and orphaned, while exchanges are shutting down. Because think what happens to an exchange if you take a payment, then sometimes after that 100 block level, everything gets rejigged and your payments are lost. The exchange is going to want that money back. They legally have a right to it. They will go back to the miner and go, give me this money. And the miner will go, but I didn't earn it.
Yeah, that's miner's issue, I think.
That's the miner's issue. And clients who've received things will then have legal redress. But unfortunately, all this Lawrence Lessig complete utter bullshit that was dispelled by Timothy Wu in 2003 of Code is Law has vomited itself back into the world in complete assholes who think they understand Bitcoin. And that's the form of it. Bitcoin was not designed to represent Code is Law. anyone who believes code is law is a moron. Okay? So I'm being nice here. I could say far worse things, but people who believe code is law are morons. That is the nicest way to say it. The fact of the matter is they're morons on crack.
Okay.
Now, the reason for saying this is it is this complete, utter bullshit that people have around how Bitcoin functions, how code functions. They have this view based on the sort of BS surrounding machine learning and artificial intelligence, and they believe there's something smart in any of these machines, that somehow we're getting close to machines working autonomously. Code is like intelligent, general intelligence. I mean, IBM runs around going, they've got general intelligence in machines all the time, so do Microsoft occasionally. Do you know how much general intelligence exists in any computer system anywhere on Earth?
0 today.
Nothing. Nothing. A spider, the most intelligent algorithm, is not as smart as a spider. A spider is more computationally complex than every single computer code on Earth, on every computer, by 100 billion. You know how close we are to breaking any of this stuff?
Maybe as close as 100 years ago? Meaning
no, as close as that caveman there.
Oh, okay.
That Neanderthal, call him Grunge there, who just discovered a new needle out of mammoth hide and sort of bone, and a new way of sewing sort of mammoth hide together, was just as close as we are. We have no clue. The entire concept of what we call artificial intelligence has no relevance to reality. Now, what people don't talk about is these algorithms that are trained under neural links, quite often fail against randomized choices of neural networks. They do one thing and they don't even do it that well. What we get to is occasionally it gives you an okay result, but most of the time it fails. Self-driving vehicles they work 90% of the time. Do you know what works 90% of the time does?
Car crashes?
It results in death. Do you know what we constantly do on these things? And I keep bitching about it. We get to around, it works 90% of the time, and then we hit a brick wall. 30 years ago, we got to similar levels. So code is not law, code will not work, and code is simple to attack. There are many attacks on these automated systems as well. By randomly placing pixels on things. There was I can't remember the author, unfortunately, but there was an example of something where people randomly painted pixels on a truck, in the image of that. And the computer then, because of where these were and the resulting deconstructed matrix, said it was an ostrich with 100% certainty.
Okay. Maybe it's
and I'm actually serious. This is a real example of one of the so-called image detection things. People love to say how Turing tests can be fooled. The reality here is, no, it isn't. They're stupid conversations by stupid people. The proper test is, I ask, butter is to bread as seatbelt is to. Guess what? No computer can do that. We don't even know how to get a computer to think about doing that. So again, code is not law. Nothing is anonymous in any of this.
Mm-hmm.
It is completely, utterly, not even pseudonymous when it comes to nodes. Nodes are utterly public. The whole system was not designed to give privacy to nodes. Exactly the opposite.
Yeah,
When I created it,
mm-hmm.
all this IP to IP stuff that people complain about, the nodes were not designed to be even remotely private, let alone anonymous.
Yeah, I think if you can,
you can't run nodes over Tor.
No, I think if you are like producing blocks, 100 blocks in a row, and then like overtake some of the main chain, there's no way you're going to be not known. You have to be like a huge data center. So, okay, what are the implications of that? You cannot attack.
So this is why, this is why BTC is trying to keep things small. They don't want a global Bitcoin system because once they have that, Timothy Wu did an analysis of Lessig in 2003. I can't remember the name of his paper. Timothy Wu's now fairly high up in the American government in the Biden administration. He was a professor. So it's good to have someone who is intelligent and has a clue setting that sort of policy. Now, the reason I'm saying that is the code is law mentality and the whole P2P thing that Wu analyzed is utterly linked to something being small. That was demonstrated in his paper. You can get away the same way a parasite gets away with things if you maintain things small. So the nature of Bitcoin is something that grows. But BTC have tried to constrain that because if you keep it down at the 3.5, 4 transactions a second level, it's never going to be anything significant. It's not about price, it's about how much it can be used. What the complete utter idiots who believe all this code of law morons don't quite get, and they're still having problems with this and thinking about different ways like proof of stake, is that when you have that system and it's competitive, Bitcoin's designed to be competitive, then what ends up happening is if you don't compete on the total system, you have an economic system and you constrain one area, then the other areas grow. So if I am talking about survival in biological systems, that sort of game, and I constrain one aspect of a life form, then other aspects will come and grow out of proportion. Other things will result. And the same in Bitcoin. So if we don't have the distribution of large blocks, the processing, the necessity to have a mixed computational power, and we focus it only on the hash rate, then what we result in is a skewed result where the hash rate grows. So if I try and limit the size of the blocks, the number of transactions, the computational complexity, I still can't limit everything. And now I end up with this system where it all ends up over there. And then they want to try and change the system to make it not a small world network, which means it's not a distributed mesh. I keep pointing this out. Bitcoin is not distributed. The non-mining systems have no point. Now, a simple fix on that, and this is a very simple fix, and you could actually even do cryptographic checks, the ability to sign transactions, etc., to implement this is you could limit the connectivity of any node on the network to never being allowed to connect to more than 8 other nodes.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think about that for a moment and what that means.
Yeah, that's what BTC is doing. Like I think it's
They
you
would
can only
like
have
to
8.
do that.
Yeah, 8. The
Oh,
outbound
no,
connection,
that's,
you're limited.
but that's user definable.
Oh, okay.
So that isn't restricted. Miners and exchanges, etc., change that and always have connectivity to everything they can.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at a miner, a node, it will connect to every other node possible on the network.
Yeah.
It is hyper connected. But you could actually technologically limit that. You could actually create a system that sort of in a peer network rejects the other peers if they're too connected. And you could broadcast the connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way you could do that would be the same way in Kadzala and others where you have a like leech versus other update system. What you would do is the node would create a list of connections, and it would basically negotiate a key exchange with those.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it would be able to, for instance, go out to another node, but it doesn't just sign that one. It says, this is my connectivity table. Sign it, please.
Okay.
And the other node will reject it if it is larger than 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
You see,
possible
now,
if you can constrain.
you build in the payment and distribution part of the network to incorporate a valid connectivity table.
Mm-hmm.
And you incorporate it such that through each hop, you must re-sign that, demonstrating maybe even a Merkleized structure to save a bit of space because they don't like too much. So hop to hop to hop to hop. Everyone has to then provably say what they've done. Now, that's not going to be a security issue because keys are pseudonymous anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But think about what this means now. You have now created a complete mesh system that is provably defined as a mesh.
Yeah, you can
And
do it
anyone
if you
trying
want.
to connect more than the mesh might be able to monitor and connect and say hello to things by lying, but they won't ever earn money. They won't be able to send a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't send a transaction and you're not earning money on Bitcoin, are you a node?
Doesn't make a difference.
So then your next problem is in the original, like the way I set the difficulty adjustment of 2016 blocks, you have an economic change in value every 2 weeks. As a
Change in value.
consequence, to be, well, if difficulty adjusts after 2 weeks, up or down, generally up, but lately down, then think what that actually means. That means the amount you're earning varies at a junction point. So that has a significant impact on profitability.
Yeah.
Now, if you're interacting at the 2 week sort of time frame and over it, and you're not earning a block every 2 weeks, it is not linearly unprofitable. There is actually a larger time jump because of the difficulty adjustment. So people earning in the 2 week period gain a profit advantage. Those who don't get a detriment.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what happens if one group gains an advantage for profit and one group gets a detriment.
Yeah, the former probably growing in shares, and then the later probably get kicked out.
These guys grow, these guys diminish.
Mm-hmm.
As they grow, they get more to invest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So effectively, if every node was perfectly equal, in the release of Bitcoin, how I finally selected it, there are no more than 2016 nodes, mining, like proper nodes, that can exist.
Mm-hmm.
There can be exchanges and other people watching the network, listening, but there can't be more than 2,000 nodes.
Yeah.
Now, every economic system ends up in a Pareto distribution.
Yeah. 80, 20%. Yeah.
The old 80-20 rule, I know,
Yeah,
that's the
something,
rule of thumb for all the salespeople.
Okay.
So 80% of the blocks will be done by 20% of the nodes by number.
Mm-hmm.
What this means is we will never have many nodes. This is why I will like tell you that there will never be many nodes. On top of that, I will also state that there have only been about 100 nodes in the entire history of Bitcoin, BTC, BCH, Bitcoin Diamond combined.
Mm-hmm.
A miner with multiple exit points is a node.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A miner with 100 internet connections is a node.
Yeah.
So these are aspects of all of this that I've got to try and get people to start understanding. Bitcoin is not anti-law. Bitcoin doesn't operate without contracts. And I'll put it on Slack. I'll dig up the paper. Timothy Wu, I know it's 2003. I can't remember the name of the damn thing, but it is a refutation of Lawrence Lessig's 1999, 2000, 2001 papers. And Timothy Wu completely obliterates Coder's law. That's why in 2003, the everything's going to be automated died off for about a decade. For a while there, everyone went, oh God, this is badly stupid, and stopped running around going, code is going to do everything, apart from ex-Mozilla communists.
Yeah.
So, so what I want you to start thinking about is what the implications are if nodes have got to actually start protecting and defending, not just sitting there earning money and thinking nothing more, if they have an obligation to ensure that that 100 block is protected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not going to go over this much more now because we're already coming up on the hour, and I'll start wrapping up. But I want you to start thinking through the implications of that.
Yeah, I think for me, it seems now that 100 is the threshold beyond which you can almost virtually impossible to reverse. But what about within 100 blocks? Like, let's say we have seen the recent attacks, right, on the BSV network by some malicious attacker. They are not reorging like a long 100 blocks.
No,
they're
not.
like a few. What about that kind of a reorg? How do we defend against that?
Okay, so that is still not going to impact anyone other than the miners, sort of double spend personal ones, etc. Now that is still a problem, but again, that is taking legal action. I've been trying to push this to people, but you need to start basically taking legal action, looking at freezing assets. I mean, this is part of what I noted in the white paper. In the white paper, you'll notice at the end, I said that any necessary controls, rules, etc., can be added through a consensus mechanism.
Yes.
This is what that means. You can block transactions. Miners can act. You know what rules include? Law.
Mm-hmm.
By definition, rules are a superset, law is a subset. If you have system rules, law necessarily applies. Full
I
stop.
see. Okay. So
If you're in a football club,
mhm.
do you get to go, oh, my club rules say that English law doesn't apply while we're in the club?
No.
So if I bring out a baseball bat because I've changed the rules of my game to say I can beat the other person senseless,
Okay.
will I get done for assault?
Yeah, of course.
Will the
That's still
judge or magistrate listen to me and go, oh, but my rules said I could?
I think yeah,
No,
no, that doesn't work that way.
exactly.
So
Alrighty.
okay. So in short, it's if it's like a within 100 blocks deep, you, you got to take a legal action pretty much.
So I will start talking about that one next week.
Okay.
I'll start addressing some of the action we can take, how you can start protecting against that, the type of things miners and nodes should be doing to protect their own interest.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds interesting. It's good
All right.
compliment. Okay. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. And talk to you next week. Okay. Take care.
Will do. All right.
Okay.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great week.
You too.